So I guess I should start the podcast officially then. So Anne-Marie, welcome to the podcast today. Thank you for joining me. It's
Thank
great
you
to
for
see
having
you.
me.
No, it's a pleasure. We've been having a good conversation outside actually about Everest Paddle Base Camp. So um, I guess the reason that I wanted to bring you onto the podcast is because you did a LinkedIn Live event a couple of months ago. Um, and it was part of the 1% Club. And you were talking about what's important to you in terms of collaboration, business development, and also what you've learned over the last 20 odd years.
Maybe a bit longer.
Yeah, I was being polite. And I remember when that event finished, my colleagues actually phoned me and they said that was great. And they could have asked you so many more questions. So I thought, right, okay, that's a podcast then. That's why I wanted you to come on today. Um, but I think what we saw on the LinkedIn Live event is where you are now in the stage of your professional life, and things are going very well. And I think things accelerated over the last sort of maybe 6 to 8 years, I think you said. So, but what I wanted to do is just find out a bit more about your formative years, because obviously what we see now probably isn't the same memory as it was 20 odd years ago. So I guess the first question is, how did you actually get into the profession?
Oh, it's interesting. Many years ago, I took the path of deciding I was going to take a year out, and I went to work for an insurance brokers. And the guy there was absolutely, I'm still in touch with him now, was absolutely fantastic, who in giving me a lot of confidence around you can do what you like in this department, you can rearrange X, Y. And I soon realised there was an insurance arm and there was a financial services arm. And I soon realised he was going to support me through the insurance exams. So that when I started to do a little bit of research, I actually thought that there would be far more opportunity from a long-term growth and earnings perspective, that financial services was going to offer me something that was more aligned to that growth part of where I could take my career and my life. So he was really supportive, and he allowed me to move across onto that arm, and the business allowed me to do my exams whilst being an administrator. I was an administrator. That's how I
Oh,
started.
right, okay.
And then very quickly pushed through into paraplanning. And at the time, then Scottish Widows used to call upon the firm, and I always got on really well with our broker
Oh, do
consultant.
you remember the days?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah. And
yeah.
he was, you need to be a broker consultant, come and work for Scottish Widows. So that was how I sort of got into the sales side of what we do, because it is, driven by commercials. But the foundation at Scottish Widows was great, because what they did was they had all the infrastructure for training, the exams, and then I used to call on all of these different advisors, and I realised very quickly who I wanted to be like and who I really didn't want to be like.
Yeah.
So that was the driver for me. I thought that I could always get better outcomes for clients and control the end piece, rather than be a broker consultant where you just basically providing the product.
Yeah.
So that's what got me into it.
Ah, interesting. So you were on the dark side, as we used to
Yeah.
call it, yeah. And I think that market still exists, but it's very much now platform and software, and it's changed a lot. So I guess the follow-on question to that is, over the years, what's changed in you most as you look back?
And I do the whole self-reflection piece, and I do that with my team. I tell them we need to make sure you have time where you look back and you look at progress. And the biggest thing for me, even if I look back in the last 3 years, is the use of language. So the language that we use and the confidence in which we deliver ideas and communicate, and the way in which you can see or read a client's emotional intelligence to what you're saying and how you react upon that. So initially, with not a lot of experience, getting thrown into the deep end of planning and sitting with people who were talking to you about life events with not a lot of life experience myself, you know, when you gain that sort of experience as you get older and you do different things, you can transgress that into a different way in which you communicate with people. So I've seen how I've grown as a person, and I've also seen how I will challenge or question clients change, and I'll challenge them, and I'll be more directional really quickly. Whereas I think back when I started, I might have taken 3 or 4 meetings to maybe get to an outcome, where now it would take me one meeting.
And has that confidence just come through because of time, because of what you've been through and life lessons?
Experience, mistakes, working with teams that share good experiences and bad experiences. I think you learn mainly from your bad experiences when something's not gone right. So I think it's been a matter of time and being curious and inquisitive and actually wanting to learn more about how we operate or communicate with other trusted advisors. You know, hearing something and think, well, that actually sounds brilliant and that works really well for that client. I'm going to take that sentence and I'm going to use it over here, and it's going to help me make that client's experience better. So I think it's just I think there's always a thirst to want to know, learn more, and like, could I present that differently or better?
And this self-reflection is it an ongoing thing? Do you constantly do the self-reflection? And if so, do you ever border into the overthinking, which a lot of people can? They overthink
Yeah.
lots of things and then they get stuck in the procrastination. And how do we move forward?
I think what's been brilliant since COVID is I would say before COVID, I was probably at times I would overthink things. I don't allow myself now. I think that is getting a little bit older. You start actually to think, hold on, you know, I'm all right. I know what I'm doing. I don't need to overthink that. So I'm better at controlling those fears, I think, in the mindset much more in the last 5, 6 years than previously. I might have been, I definitely was an overthinker before then.
Do you still get nervous?
No.
No.
I don't get imposter syndrome. I don't get nervous. It's not something. I think treat everybody as I would want to be treated. I don't take the nervous thing around. It's a big client, it's X, it's Y. I just know I'm going to go in and I'm going to deliver experience, ideas, facts, and I'm going to make sure I'm going to get the best outcome for the client. I'm confident of that.
Is that because you think you actually know who you are as well and you're comfortable in your own skin?
I'm totally, and I think also as you get to a point, you understand what your values are and how you can align those values to others. And, you know, one of my biggest things, I have a personal coach, and one of the things we talk about is, you know, who you are as an individual, what your identity is. And the biggest part of that for me is that my values are around fairness and being reasonable. And I always feel that that's how I would want to deal with clients, staff, whoever that I deal with. It's about being honest, fair, approachable. So it's one of my values.
Is it? No. Can we explore this a bit further? Because I'm
Yeah.
interested in this, because I think when companies have values, but sometimes it can be perhaps more of a tick box exercise, and they're general. You can have honesty and integrity, but when it goes to your own personal values, what process did you go through to actually identify what really were your values?
We sat down with a list of 20 suggestions, and then we whittled it down to 7. And we talked through from a values piece. And there's a reoccurring theme for me, which is the fairness piece. So, and I suppose if you've got a good coach and they know how to challenge and question, they're going to make you think about things that you don't want to think about, and you'll say a sentence and then you'll dissect it, and then before you know it, you start getting answers.
Yeah, you do. What is it about the fairness that really resonates?
Oh my
with you?
goodness, I don't know. I was brought up with an older sister, and I always thought she got treated differently. She was the apple of my dad's eye, and I'm absolutely sure he was really competitive. He used to put us into races together, and there was 4 years difference between us. So I was always snapping at my sister's coat heels, and I always felt that she got treated differently to me, and I would always be, you know, that's not fair. So yeah, they do say the whole child, you know.
Do they?
Well, they do say that, but I think that's been a positive.
Yeah.
I am a competitive individual, and I'm always striving, and I think that's because I did look up to my sister, and my dad probably created that environment.
Yeah. And at school, what were you like at school? Were you good at numbers and maths and things like that?
Oh my Lord, I was good at sports. The academia piece probably came a little bit later for me. I always used to be able to look like I wasn't doing a lot, but always got by and did well in my exams. But I wasn't an academic. I think the way in which I approached my exams and how I was going to progress probably started more so mid-20s. And I think I only really got to know who I was at around 31, 32.
Yeah.
I think I believed in who I was at that point.
Yeah. Okay. And what sports did you play?
Oh my goodness, everything. Big sport for me was netball. I played for the county. I played for the county at badminton, at hockey, javelin. There was all
Did it
sorts.
all?
Yeah, I did. I love sport.
Yeah. And you still play sport now? We're going to get onto
Yeah,
paddle.
we are. Yeah. I play paddle. I stopped playing netball because I umpired netball as well because of a sporting injury. But I kayak, I mountain bike, road bike, go to the gym.
Yeah.
I love paddle because it's back in that team environment and the competitiveness. And it's really good. And I think you're always still learning, and I like that.
It's one of those games I've just picked up. and it's addictive.
Yeah,
It
I know.
really is addictive.
It's also expensive if you get addicted.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. But it seems to have exploded from nowhere.
I know.
Everyone's talking about paddle. But you mentioned earlier on about challenges, and you learn from your mistakes and the challenges that life throws at you. What would you say in your formative years were the biggest challenges you went through?
I think being taken seriously, you know, as a blonde female in financial services where the traditional environment or audience giving advice was male, you know, male, white male. So I do think it was hard to be taken seriously. And that was a little bit of challenge. And also maybe not having that life experience piece that you could throw into conversations and make people feel more comfortable quicker. I think that was, you know, it was definitely part of who I am, but I don't think I knew how to channel it correctly. And that's something that has got better over time.
I mean, the industry or the profession, I always get told off when I say industry, the profession, it's changed a lot over the last 20, 25 years from my perspective. But from your perspective, has it changed in terms of how people are treated in the workplace? And if somebody else was coming in at, you know, young, the next generation, do you think they would have a different experience to you?
I do think they would. I think they definitely have a different experience. And I do think it depends on the team that they're in and who their peer group is, who they've got to look up to, who they're getting mentored or coached by. I think, you know, sometimes you can still see old habits in different environments, definitely, but that's across every sector, right? It's not just our sector. There's still that thing happening. But I think I'm just of the point now where, you know, I'm always encouraging people to call things out, be honest. But there's definitely there's a difference in the whole ethical piece around the youngsters that we see coming through and the work environment now around work-life balance. You know, what's important to someone who's 26 or 30 can be totally different to what's important for me. So it's difficult to find sometimes what drives different members of the team because everybody's so different now.
Yeah, and it's sometimes quite hard to connect as well because it's very different, you know, to what someone in their mid-20s wants and then somebody who's a different age range. But I think that's probably, I would guess that's always been there really from different generations. When we entered it, maybe the generation above had difficulty talking to us because of we were the computer generation. Now we've got the social media generation coming through.
Yeah.
So maybe there's always been a generational gap. But
Yeah.
I'd like to think things have really improved.
No, they've definitely improved in the way I'm sure that some people would feel in different scenarios. I can see that, you know, and I mean, I've worked for the business that I work for now for 16 years and I've seen our business change massively, all for the better. And that's just over time and management and culture, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you still see pockets everywhere.
That's human nature though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It happens all the time. And who would you say was your biggest influence?
I mean, that's a really tough question because I'd looked at some of the questions before and I thought my first boss was probably instrumental in giving me confidence to feel that I had the freedom to go and to do things differently. And maybe I carried that through into my working career. I think any manager who supports entrepreneurial spirit, the autonomy or the freedom to allow you to go and do things, to explore things, to try things differently, with my type of character, is going to get good results from me and going to give me what I feel that I need. But then I think the rest really is down to me if I'm given that freedom. So the biggest influence on my career is myself and the way in which I've been brought up and what my values are. And I think it's been supported by great managers along the way. Not all were great, but managers who've given me freedom to not be afraid to make a mistake and to know that I'm supported.
So were you needed to be given the autonomy and the framework to go and achieve or to make mistakes, and that's the best way that you were going to learn?
Absolutely. And I think that's both. You do learn from your mistakes but not holding on to them and it being brought up constantly, you know, like using it as a positive instead of a negative to think about what would you do differently or what would the business do differently. And actually owning it with clients as well, having the confidence to be honest and own when something's not gone well. You know, I changed how I would articulate that now from maybe 15 years ago. And that, again, just comes with learning, doesn't it?
In what way? How would you change?
Deal with it quicker,
Oh,
pick up
okay.
the phone sooner,
Yeah.
deliver bad news fast.
Yeah. Is that
Yeah,
the key then?
I
Because a lot
think
of people
so.
don't do that still, do
No,
they?
don't
They
do it
put
by
it off.
email, pick up the phone.
That's weird, isn't it? Why are we hesitant to pick up the phone and give bad news?
I keep seeing pick up the phone to speak to people full stop. I think it's
Yeah.
getting harder and harder. Most people can, you know, they send information now via an audit trail or email. I mean, all of our calls now are recorded. I don't worry about any of that. I think client interaction, communication, verbally and personally is really important in our profession.
You come across as quite fearless, if you don't mind me saying. Would that be fair?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would. Yeah.
And how do you think like managers have reacted to you in the past? Because sometimes when managers need to allow people to have freedom, that's quite hard on them.
Yeah.
Because they're judged with the KPIs or the numbers or whatever.
Yeah.
And if you're saying, "Oh,
Yeah.
Anne-Marie, she's doing what she's doing,"
Yeah. Well, I always hit the KPIs along with the freedom piece. I think I'm not always sure what drives me, and I think that's a challenge to manage. It's not perfection, but it's definitely excellence. I don't believe in perfection. That's something I've learned over the years, actually, not to expect perfection because it's not sustainable.
You can't achieve it.
So I think the excellence piece is a big.
Is that something your coach has helped you?
Do you not
understand?
know? I think that's something
Is
that I
that
learnt
you?
through netball, if I'm being
Oh, okay.
honest. Yeah.
So it's not perfection, it's excellence.
Yeah. Quality and excellence.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that because the LinkedIn Live event you did, it was all about, not all about, but it was a focus on collaboration,
Yeah.
teamwork. And from a client perspective, it was all about working together. And I'm interested in the collaboration piece anyway. And is this something that the advisory community could actually do more of with regards to collaboration with professional connections?
I mean, I'm going to say yes, but I do think it's changed a lot. I think I've seen progress in our field where there's a lot more mutual respect across the different professional services. I think our industry, or you know, we were definitely seen within a different light many years ago, and that's changed. You know, with becoming the chartered status and whatnot, and having a one-to-one peer across sort of accountancy, tax, solicitors. So I've seen it change. I think more and more people now are getting the understanding that if you're going to get the planning piece right, effectively it's not something that you could do wholly on your own for certain types of clients or levels of clients with different levers of where income or wealth is going to come from. Especially if there's a business owner. If you take a business owner with the complexities around at some point, if they're going to pass that on down a generation or if it's going to be a point of sale, you know, if there's more than one shareholder, there's quite a lot of cross-pollination of opportunities, but only do you get the best outcome if you make sure that you've got the right people in the room at the right time and you don't deal with things in silos. So I have seen it progress, but I still think there's huge gaps. And I think the market actually's got an element of gap in the way that you'll have family office, you'll have IFAs, you'll have wealth managers or the big banks. And I do think there's somewhere in between, which is a sort of hybrid family office piece, which is I feel like that's the type of role that I play with my clients that will become greater and bigger in the emotional intelligence piece or the collective intelligence piece of having 3 trusted advisors in a room at the same time who will challenge each other. Will mean that clients do get better outcomes and nobody's blinkered following a one-way track of advice. It will be actually we need to explore all these other things and be clear on why we're discounting them. I feel really strongly about, can we just be clear on why we're not looking at these avenues or why we should bring them back into play at a future point, and then let's make sure we document it. You know, let's be clear on that, and not being afraid to revisit, because clients evolve, the tax landscape evolves
Constantly.
Objectives change, you know, so it's really important when you go through that annual review piece with clients that you are sense checking and not to just make assumptions that you'll continue to discount something. Actually, rules have changed. I think this is worthy of a revisit and being really clear on why.
How do you work with professional connections and introduce us with, when you talk about collaboration, and I get your point, and I think it's a real, from a client perspective, I can see it being a positive. But I can also see it from, let's say there's three people in the marriage. If you've got accountants, solicitors, and you have an advisor, how do you sort of stay in your lane and also then work with the client to help with client outcomes as well? Because sometimes I think, is there some protectionism? Does
Yeah,
that creep in
yeah.
as well? And if so, how do you sort of how do you navigate that dance?
And I've seen that, and I still see that. I'm not sure if it's protection or it's this is my lane. This is my fee charging work. This is how I bring commercials to the table and do X, Y, and Z for my clients. But I think really it's creating the understanding of I totally get that this is your area of advice. You're a specialist. Let's say if it's the structure of a limited company, an investment company. But actually, how that then feeds in and what the flexibility of that structure is and how it might create passing on wealth or creating future income streams, all of that's really relevant to how, as a financial planner, you would engage with the client and possibly other members of the family. So it's making sure that you don't let people be fearful that, I can't give advice to set up a family investment company. But what I can do is say, well, you mentioned 3 other people and share classes. How are we bringing that into the plan? What you can just make sure is that the holistic piece is pulled in, because I'm going to ask different questions than an accountant, and I'm a female. I'm nosy. I'm going to ask everything.
Yeah.
So I'm going to want to make sure, and I don't forget anything. I'll make sure I pull it back in. And actually, sometimes accountants will go, "That's a really good point. I'd not known that," and vice versa. They share that data back. So I do think if you use the right language and you're working with people regularly, they know you understand what they do. There's never a fear piece. There's never, that doesn't happen. I think if you're not au fait with who brings what to the table, there can be very, very mixed experiences.
Yeah.
And I still see that. And that's, I have my checklist now. And a lot of the time, especially if you're meeting new clients, you can be led by where you know their trust is. So if they absolutely have got a brilliant relationship with their accountant, it's completely trusting, the accountant might lead. They might end up being the person that leads. Obviously, I've got OCD and find that.
Yeah.
I like to conduct the orchestra.
Yeah.
So
this must be quite difficult when you're talking
yeah,
about collaboration and you've got other people in the room. For you, I would probably imagine that's quite tough because you want it done right. It's about excellence.
But then we're clear on expectation. So this is where I know you're going to do X, and this is what I'm going to bring. Can we always agree that we're going to communicate? If I contact the client, have a discussion, we share our notes afterwards, or you're invited to the meeting. That's a two-way street. It only works if it's a two-way street. The client gives the instruction. We're all on the same page. You set yourself up for success, don't you, at the start?
Yeah.
And I've learned that from having not done that in other scenarios where I might have assumed certain things were happening, and incorrectly.
Yeah.
And then sometimes had challenging conversations of, well, surely that's your role, or this is my. So I'm clearer now about, well, this is my role in this relationship, and this is what I can bring, and I need your help, and vice versa.
And I would guess you're pretty straight with people as well. If you see something which isn't being done, that should be done, irrespective of the relationship.
Yeah, and I'd expect to be called out the same as well.
So it's absolutely equal then. There's equity in that.
Yeah.
Okay. And from a client perspective, what's the negative of not working in collaboration with other advisors?
So at some point, you will be disadvantaged from a tax perspective 80% of the time if you have got all of these different avenues not communicating and not interlinking, because you'll take a course of action and you'll have not been clear on why something else has been discounted, or it shouldn't have been discounted. I had a situation recently where there was a discussion piece with myself, an accountant, and a client, and we were chatting about using allowances. And obviously the pension rules are changing, and there was a statement made around, well, what we'll do is we'll drive some income out of the pension because that'll help with the new rules, and that will get them up to the basic rate tax threshold. But actually, there was an offshore bond with gains and segments where, when we did the mathematical calculation, we could create taxable income, and it was an average at a tax rate of about 8%, which is better than 20%.
Yeah.
So my challenge is well, that's that I understand that, but let's make sure we've just done the mathematical calculations through each structure to get the optimum tax position. And a lot of the time, how many times have clients come to me where they've had offshore bonds and they've just accrued them, or generally taken the 5% deferred allowance and just allowed all that deferred tax to roll up? That's not how those structures should be used. It should be to use them across each tax year and the segments and other family to think about how you're going to pass on wealth, grandchildren, whatnot. But so that can get frustrating, I think, at times. But I think it's our job to make sure we say it's a great idea, but let's just be clear on, are there any other avenues that could create a lower amount of tax? And does that sit better? I mean, you might want to strip money out of pension for other reasons. I'm not suggesting that it's not, but it's got to be a discussion piece that takes place.
Yeah. So you like to sense check
Yeah,
things as well.
100%.
Make sure they're, and if not, then you challenge.
Yeah.
Okay. And how is the profession viewed now with accountants and solicitors? Because previously we used to be the poor cousin, and it's like, oh, bring the advice and they'll sell you a pension. How has that changed over the years?
I think it's changed a lot because of reciprocity. I will refer client work to accountants and solicitors, and I'll ask for legal advice in return for some clients, or this is a tax structure I'd like you to consider putting together. So I do think that as a peer group we're more on an equal, and we're all much more professional in how we're seen and how we communicate. And I think everybody does want to collaborate because there's a commercial element. Not only is it better for the client, but commercially, you don't have to rely on marketing or X or Y. You've actually got this group of people who can reward you with client introductions and vice versa.
And collaboration and trust, I guess it takes time for that to come through, because we do live in a now world. We want everything now, and it's got to be now.
Yeah.
So would your advice be that collaboration and trust and building up those networks, they take time to persevere, as opposed to the expectation, if you don't get anything in 3 months, that's it.
I mean, I'd say it's a 3-year view. Totally. It's not something I think you can, sometimes it works quickly. Sometimes you have a win and it's a 3-month window and everything's gone perfectly and you've referred a client, you get one back. But generally it takes time, and people buy people, don't they? And it, not everyone's always going to see my personality in a work meeting. They've got to get to know who you are personally and what your values are, and do they align with their clients. So I think that's a piece. So when I think about a lot of the team that I manage coming through now, who are coming through from a standing start, shall we say, I've said to them, don't punish yourself. Think for the next 3 years, what events can you go to? How are you going to build friendships, build trust, and find a way to be consistent and a little bit persistent and play paddle, go and do certain things where you get to see different sides of people's character, and you can understand how you would match a client to wanting to work with them and how you would want to be seen in the reverse.
And what's it like managing? I'm smiling. What's it like managing your team?
I love managing my team.
Because you're about excellence, and I sort of take from that. That's about you like to have the control. You like to see what's going on. So how can you, as your managers have given you latitude, how can you give latitude to your team?
I mean, I think it is important to give. I'm not a micromanager. I might have been maybe 10 years ago, but I've definitely learned not to be that person, to give people the freedom to go and do things, but always to make sure there's a sense check on where they're spending the time. What are their learnings? What have they got any gaps? It's interesting. So most of my team have been with me for quite a long time. So they've seen the Ann-Marie, who probably was a bit OCD, and then they've seen the more relaxed Ann-Marie as we've gone through. But then they're gaining confidence and experience too. So it's very easy when you've got a team that's worked together for some time. I've had a couple of new members to my team where we just gel because they've got the same values, but you have to work to win their trust early on. And when you do, that really, really works. And I see that. And I put a little bit of time and effort into that because I want us to be a harmonious team. I like that. I like to come to work to feel like we've got a good team and there's a little bit of fun, but there's also hard work, and there's also good outcomes.
So yeah, excellent outcomes all the time. So do your team sort of really understand who you are as well, with how you approach clients, what you expect? Even if you're not a micromanager, do you set the expectations from the off in terms of this is what good looks like?
I do. I think there's a whole piece around what's the most important thing, and for me, the client experience sits at the top. And you have to reverberate that down through power planning, admin. At all times there might be internal processes, but there is a client at the end of what we're all aiming to do. So the client's got to come first, and everybody in the team has got to be client centric. That's very much a key driver, and that's the language that we use all the time, continue to use. And then outside of that, I think the whole cultural piece of, the expectation of, helping with a client, being past clients, doing all that. I just think there's an honesty piece around. Not everything's going to be handed to you. You are going to have to work hard as well. But if you do good things happen. That's something that I said on the LinkedIn Live, and all of my team would say that's probably my strap line. Don't get too caught in the short-term detail. Don't worry if you're behind of target or this hasn't gone right. You keep doing good things and good things will happen. And I'm a massive believer in that.
Where does that come from? Because we can be in the profession, well, that's wrong actually, not just the profession, but life in general, quite selfish. It's about now.
Yeah.
And I think when I'm on the same page, as you can tell, because we highlighted things in yellow on our pages here. But it is about maybe karma, but giving good things out, and you'll get the return at some point. But
it's human nature, right?
For some,
yeah.
For some, and some it isn't. Some they have a take nature. So probably the question I'm trying to get to look at really is where does that come from, that strap line for you? Because you've mentioned it a few times. You've mentioned it today. That's a driver. And that's something intrinsic, and I'm just trying to understand, where did that come from?
It's got to be upbringing in some way, shape or form. I think it's always been instilled to me, and it's probably, it's probably from my first boss. Literally just, if you are always respectful, honest, trustworthy, if you keep that mantra, good things will happen.
Yeah. It's just the basics then.
Positive mindset.
It is. Yeah.
And I'm very much a positive mindset person.
And again, is that just something is that a learned behaviour over the time, or have you always been a positive person?
I think I was born positive.
Yeah.
I've definitely had periods when I've questioned some of my life choices, and that's not been ideal. But my mum was brilliant with us as kids. She used to, we were two girls. My dad wanted boys, so and she was really strong in saying, use your voice, speak up, tell people what you want, and don't be afraid. And I always had the fear of failure. I think that was inbred from, I don't know if it's been I don't know where it comes from, but the fear of failure drives you to the piece of not perfection, but the excellence piece. Yeah, and I think that's something that I don't ever think about now, but I think maybe 10 years ago I would have thought of quite a lot about, I can't fail at that. But actually now I accept that failure's okay, and especially on a paddle court. You've got to take some of the losses, haven't you? But I'm not going to let it overwhelm me. I'm going to think, right, well, I'm going to pick myself up, forget about that, and crack on.
And how many times do you play paddle a week then?
Up to 2 times.
Really?
Yeah. I'd play more if I
pairs
could.
or
Pairs.
Yeah.
Pairs. Good fun.
And what standard are you at, do you reckon?
At 2.9 on Platonic.
What does that mean?
I have no idea. I think I'm like a good improver is probably the easiest way to say it. Although some games I feel like I'm a beginner, but that's the challenge.
Yeah. Well, it's always pushing forward, isn't it?
Yeah.
Always improving, trying that next bit. And you do events with professional connections and clients, etc., bring people together.
Yeah, I think we're good at that. And, a lot of my friendship circle, I've got some friendships that I've made now that have come through work. that are in different professions, sort of, accountants, lawyers, and I see them regularly. And, we share intel or ideas, and there's a safe environment to pick brains. I always think that's helpful. And getting those people together and sharing connections also really mega important from a networking point of view. The amount of times I'll meet people maybe for the first time who are in a certain environment of doing X, and like, you would really benefit from meeting this person, and then put them together. I get a lot of thanks for that. Not being afraid to share your network, because that's how it all works. That's the circle of trust, isn't it?
Yeah. And giving good things as well.
Yeah.
Good things happen.
Yeah.
Okay. So you love paddle, you're doing that, you're getting the clients around it as well. I guess where I want to take the conversation now is maybe where does the future lie then? Because I think things are changing in the world of financial planning, and I'm interested to get your perspective, because we've really, talked about trust, collaboration. I guess I'm looking at it from an AI perspective and where we're going. It's like, how do we build trust and that human empathy and that judgment and all of the good stuff when AI is rapidly advancing?
Yeah, and I've had some clients that have come to me where they've put questions into, one of the AI systems, and the answer's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's very generic. It's very factual. What it isn't doing is it's not understanding the wider piece around emotion, family, fears, objectives. Maybe that someone's got a child that's gone through a really bad divorce, and that a client's thinking of doing something, and this structure might sound great on paper, but actually it's going to create an issue pretty quickly for what they're actually trying to achieve longer term. So I think experience and having the confidence to be able to quickly decipher and challenge, well, that's great, and that's a functional piece of advice. It's very transactional, and that's going to give you one outcome. But actually, if it's not linked to X, Y, and Z, you're not going to get a better outcome. And to do that, what you have to do is get the specialist in the room. That's not, AI across professions is not all going to get together in a little room and suddenly create, the best advice outcome. That's not how it works. You'd have to literally put in all of your facts, fears, emotions, everything, wouldn't you? And hope that at some point AI is clever enough to articulate that into a plan. But I think that's where our profession can rely on really fast information that's factually correct, generic information. But you've then got to apply experience, overlay, emotion. And then you've got to make sure that you're delivering it to the audience, your clients, in the way that they will understand it. So that might be that for some it's more complicated. It's their analytics. They want all of the data differently, and for others it's really simple, and you might need pictures. So there's lots of different ways to communicate outcomes to individuals. It's not always in written format. It's not always in verbal. We use cash flow tools in our industry. It's it's applying that at the right time, isn't it? And sometimes you can meet a client on one day and they can go down a totally different pathway on another. AI's not going to get that.
No.
So I think it's helping us all document things and be more professional with follow-ups much sooner. I love it when I've had a great meeting with a client. I've gone through all of these things that we can help them with, and then I'll look at the summary afterwards and I'm like, oh, that's a really good summary.
Yeah.
And it's done so quickly, and the client gets that back. So they've had the verbal, they've got the written, there's an audit trail. I mean, it's fantastic. Well, that's not going to be the whole advice piece. It's not going to be how you then make sure certain things happen within certain timelines, and that if Rachel Reeves comes out with some new information, that you act quickly and go and change the plan. AI is not going to have the competence to do that.
I think it really helps with the process side, and you can capture information,
Yeah.
and it can look at data far quicker than anybody.
Yeah.
But how you present that data to your client, your clients, and as I would still want that emotional empathy.
Yeah.
I'd still want to go in and trust and ask questions, and that's where the gap is at the moment. And I have no idea what's going to happen in 10 years, but let's deal with what's in front of us. But I guess from an advisory perspective, I guess, do you think that people will need to change their behaviours slightly? Because I've come across many advisors who rely on their technical knowledge, Now, once that technical knowledge perhaps isn't at the forefront of what's needed, because the technical knowledge could be learned by AI, the presentation is slightly different. Do you think it's going to allow advisors to almost have like an uncomfortable truth with themselves? Say, okay, I need to be seeing more clients. I need to be sitting in front of them, as opposed to perhaps relying on my technical knowledge. Maybe I need to work on my human skills.
Yeah, and I you know, I've looked at that across our business, and you do see who's more technical, and you know, some of the, let's say, some of the youth coming through where they've got the personality piece right, and they know how to engage and find some common ground and make a client feel comfortable. And you've got to get out, you've got to do that with a number of clients, haven't you, to win
Yeah.
new clients over. You don't just win every client over that you meet. Generally, because that's the
Yeah.
aim. So I do think it will get maybe harder for the generation of financial planners where we're at, more on my side of the fence from an age range perspective,
Yeah.
and we've still got some time ahead of us. I think for the younger generation coming through, as long as they've got the right support system, as in mentor coaching, where they're being reminded about the emotional intelligence piece, the personality piece, the empathy piece, because they're being brought up in a world where that's what they'll find out technical information themselves, won't they, from running it through Copilot or
This is it. It's happening.
Yeah. So that technical piece is going to change. But it is interesting. I've had some situations recently where we've got some questions around the structure of a SAS and the winding up of a SAS and a scheme pension, and there's lots of things going on. The clients actually thought that they could do it themselves, and it's gone very wrong, and now they've come to us and asked us to help them. We tested the water by using AI, and it was factually incorrect, and because some scheme rules differ, so there's and it was a complex situation. So it was interesting to see how different what somebody, if they'd done it themselves, might have thought it was the true answer. But because we know history, we've been in the industry for, I've been in the industry for a long time. You remember little snippets of things that happened in the 90s, and you almost think, well, hold on a second, that doesn't feel right. That piece, I'm not sure AI's going to be able to do either. Old products that someone wants to surrender and you can't get the answers that you need, and what's the tax position, you're not going to find that out in AI.
No, not yet.
No.
This is programmed to learn it.
Well,
but even then, you still got that trust side.
Yeah.
You still, do you trust what's being the output?
Yeah.
Or do you then? Because I look at it, I think it's like sat nav, right? When you use sat nav, you just look at sat nav. Okay. And it's like, if somebody said to me, because I had to go down to Leicester the other day, and if somebody said, how'd you get down to Leicester? And I think, right, okay, so I'll go on the M1, and then that's about it. So it's always like, we shouldn't lose sight of our critical thinking. And that becomes very important when you're working with clients, because again, the output will probably change, but you still need to have that critical thought. And is this right? Does this work for our client?
But that's the beauty of collaboration. When you're in a room and you've got an accountant, tax advisor, corporate lawyer, private client lawyer, and you've got yourself and the client, that critical thinking is collective, isn't it? And that's, I think, where you learn more and you can challenge more and you can pick up more that you'll take into future meetings, because you're using the collective intelligence piece to your advantage for the client, but also future clients. And so for me, I've said it a million times, haven't I? The collaboration piece for me is the future of our industry, about making better outcomes for clients if you're working together.
And do you think that's the bridge that needs to be, or the gap that needs to be bridged? Because that's what you're doing at the moment, where you mentioned before, you can have a family office and you can have your accountant over here, and they're not as connected. So do you think this is the gap that you're trying to bridge?
Yeah, and that's the people again, isn't it? It's the people piece. It's working together, not using an AI bot.
Yeah.
It's actually getting together and in a live situation being able to articulate outcomes.
Can you imagine a world without that collaboration, where it's just bots talking to bots?
I mean, I don't think I'll be here at that point, but I think it could come. I might be an avatar somewhere. Yeah.
They just pop up on the screen.
Yeah.
You'd be playing paddle though.
Oh, yeah. I'll have different versions of myself.
This is this is the tax one.
Yeah.
This is the collaboration piece,
Yeah.
and this is somebody over
Yeah.
here. I just think we're living in sort of crazy times at the moment, and it's very interesting. But I guess the question I've got now is, what does the future look like in terms of, if you're doing a crystal ball in the next sort of 2 to 3 years? What do you think will change and have the most dramatic change within the profession?
I mean, our profession, I would say that my profession is financial planning, and then there's investment management as part of, the same profession or similar. I think that what's coming for investment is probably the tools that are out there can do a lot more things, and there'll be a lot of cost savings, and there'll be much more data that is available quickly in respect of investment performance, charges, views of investment houses. I think there's a lot happening there that's going to give clients a lot more freedom. In fact, I think I read something today around, there was a review of high net worth international families, how many of them were just with one investment manager or wealth manager.
Yeah.
And that's something like 19% now, that most of them work with more than one wealth manager.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was out in the press today. I read that and I thought that's interesting, because everyone's getting more savvy around the philosophy differs and the access to different market differs, and should it be more specialist for certain types of clients. And a lot of the time we'll still hear in our industry, if you meet clients, about not having all of your eggs in one basket. Yes. In respect of a philosophy or an investment view. So that was interesting to read. But from a financial planning point of view, I think we are seeing much more the view around, are we giving a one-off piece of advice? Is it a transactional piece of advice because that's what the client needs at this time? From a cost point of view, is that appropriate? Versus, is it a holistic piece where there is a need for true ongoing reviews, financial planning, servicing, not just a review of investments, but a review of the overall tax strategy, the whole piece around succession, tax, income, all of that. So I think there'll be sort of two camps, where you'll have the piece where it's absolutely needed that ongoing advice is part of an evolving plan, and the whole service piece is correct, and the client should be paying for that, and there's no questions asked. But I do think some clients are habitually in a relationship where actually, do they need ongoing financial planning advice or not? I think we'll find that the industry makes that marker much more clearer. In fact, I know a lot of businesses are doing that. They're being clearer that this is a one-off piece of advice. You don't need ongoing servicing. You might need something else ongoing, as in suitability of the risk that you take, but it might not be true financial planning. And I think clients will pay more appropriately for the services that they require, and they'll challenge more appropriately for not getting what they're paying for. For the clients of a different level of wealth, the type of clients that I deal with of a certain level of wealth, I think there'll be much more of that round table approach, and it'll just be seen as that's
norm.
what the norm.
What's it like dealing with entrepreneurs and sort of that high net worth, the ultra high flyers, etc.?
I mean, generally, I tend to deal with people that own a business or have sold a business, and they've created that baby themselves, and they're very proud of it, and they've got brilliant family members, and some I've looked after for years, and it's years since they sold the business, and you watch the grandkids come, the great grandkids, and it's
you do the intergenerational stuff as well. So
yeah.
It's all,
and I love the whole family piece, because you really do, you understand the dynamics of how the family operates, and that helps you make better decisions. But I love working with entrepreneurs because it's really fast paced. They want answers quickly, and I work at speed.
So it's perfect for you, isn't it? Yeah.
They do like challenge. They're not afraid of that. They're happy to pay for services if they feel that they're getting the right experience, and that's exactly what they want. And they know when they're dealing with me, it's going to be, I'm generally quite direct and clear, and that you've got the right team behind you who understands that that's what they want and uses the language that they understand. For me, the language piece is massive. I think my husband's got his own business, and many years ago, he passed something in comment to me that he was going to be doing something, and I was like, well, What? Why? What? Why are you doing that? Have you communicated that to your accountant? No. Well, you need to, because you're going to pay more tax. You could do X and Y, and it's going to be better. And I think what I'd suggested worked, and his accountant was like, "That's a really good idea."
Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
So you take those little snippets, don't you, and you move them into. I think I've always just been really curious, and thinking, actually, if you just change that and move that to there, that could create this wonderful saving, or it might actually mean that it's going to give you more agility to do that over there. I think I just
So you add
think
value
like a
that
jigsaw
yeah.
where
So
I get the
you little
pieces
snippets,
together.
and then you pass it on,
Yeah,
and then they go, "Oh, that was a really good idea,"
yeah,
and that's your way of giving or adding value.
yeah,
And then good things happen when you do that.
absolutely.
So we've nailed it.
Yeah, I know.
That's very good.
Mm.
And how would you describe yourself? You know, from a would you say talked about identity briefly, but you know, if you're meeting a client, how would you actually advise or describe who you are?
I mean, I do try and curb a little bit of personality depending on who's in the room, but I am genuinely myself. And I think there's no falseness around who I am in a client meeting. I'm very comfortable in my own
Mm.
skin. So I don't try to profess to be something that I'm not. Um, I don't know. I mean, I describe myself as, you know, efficient.
Mm.
I'm generally upbeat. I am direct. I'm directive, so I will make decisions quite quickly, and I'll offer guidance and advice very early on in meetings, where I think sometimes we might sit a little bit back and think, not sure if to say that. I go with my gut instinct
Mm.
very quickly, I would say. Definitely work on the whole, the feel within the first 30 seconds of a meeting. I know how I'm going to position myself, and if I'm going to show less personality
Yeah,
or more personality, and maybe over time, I'll
could come out a bit more.
try my
Yeah.
best. Yeah, I do have a fun side. I think sometimes people forget that when they look at the numbers and the data and the commercials. I like a happy team, and I like to feel good. I enjoy
Yeah.
coming to work, and I think clients buy that. They can see that you
You're
enjoy your
passionate
job.
about it, you
Yeah,
care.
yeah.
Because when I came today, I thought I didn't know what you were going to be like, and I thought I wonder if you a little bit of apprehension as
No,
well. No, as
yeah.
in,
People often
and it's
the perception thing's
yeah, it's a
interesting
weird thing, isn't
because
it?
you've read something on a piece of paper
Yeah,
and
uh,
you look at the data rather than the
yeah.
individual.
You look at the numbers and you think,
Yeah,
oh my god, dealing
yeah,
with this, and then you start to perhaps have a little bit of imposter syndrome, like what am I going, what am I going to talk about, what, and actually you come across as very natural, very down to earth, very normal.
I'm
But I
ve-
think that resonates. I think that's what advice is about. It's about if you can identify and actually know who you are, I think that resonates because I don't think many people do. I think we pretend, and I think people can see through that. May not articulate it, but they want to feel comfortable. They want to feel valued. And I think if you can sort of have that vibe about being direct, but you know who you are,
yeah.
I think that's a positive because there's loads of chameleons out there, and that's a problem.
It was. I always remember a situation that I'd been asked to attend a meeting, and I'd been at an awards night the night before, and I was getting to this meeting. I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll pick up some twisted ice donuts, and I'll
Yeah.
take them to the meeting. Because I was absolutely starving, I was rushing. I said, I've got to get some sugar down me, and I'd been given very basic details around this client, and they'd approached 5 companies, and I'd walked in, and then when I'd walked in and I'd sat down, and it was a big business that was selling. I think I'd been told that the sale proceeds might be 10 million. Anyway, add another note,
Wow.
and that was told to me in the first, I think, 3 minutes. And I'd put these donuts on the table and said, "Well, it'd be great to have a cup of tea," you know. But actually, I won that client over, and they're still clients now. And he always laughs and jokes with me about the donuts. But I do think that me being myself and not overthinking going into something like that, just going in
Mm,
and being myself was the key for that being an easy meeting.
yeah. That's great. Well, they remember that though, don't they? Yeah.
He still gets donuts.
every time.
Not every time.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to explore or discuss before I go on to my final question?
I mean, I'm an open book. I think you can ask anything you like. I'm not sure what else might benefit your listeners.
Well, they're all advisors.
Advisors, right?
And my son, who's not an advisor, who just literally will say something probably not too complimentary about me. He likes to do that. Troll me, I think, is the key trolling. But at least he watches. So big shout out to my son.
Blue.
I guess I've got two questions, and one of the questions I want to put to you is where you are now. What advice would you give to your past self if you could pass on some advice?
I would have said get a mentor and a coach sooner. You know, look up and be clear that you want to progress and ask for help. Choose the person that you want to get feedback from. Don't just accept it from everybody. Someone that you respect and look up to, because sometimes people can offer support and then that they don't get who you are, and it can consume you differently. And to also have a voice. I think, you know, as a female in our community, there's definitely been times where I've thought, oh, I've got a question. Oh, but I might feel really stupid. It might be a really stupid question. I wouldn't have asked the question back, you know, maybe 10, 15 years ago. And now, you know, I'm just like, ask the question. Doesn't matter. We're all human beings here. Just don't be afraid to use your voice. And I wish I'd been quicker sooner in being more challenging with clients. And I also wish I'd got off the mark quicker on collaboration. That's probably something that maybe 10, 11 years ago was much more on the radar, you know, and if I'd done that sooner. I look at now some of the team coming through and they're getting all of the wisdom of the things that have worked or that haven't worked. And I think, God, imagine if I'd have had that. That'd have been awesome.
Would it be? And then it goes into the perfection and excellence, isn't it? Your journey's been yours to own and to go through it, and now it's the wisdom that you pass on.
Yeah.
So it's all life's learnings, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
And you're doing very well.
Yeah, and I like
do you
what
ever
I
look
do.
at it and go, oh yeah, I am doing well? Can you actually relax and go, have a sense of achievement?
I think I'm starting to feel that now, but because you're in the hamster wheel of seeing clients, communicating with clients, reporting things up, reporting things down, managing, you don't often really have time to sit and think, goodness me, I achieved X. And a lot of the time, I'd never look at the figures and never ever look at the commercials, because you do good things happen. Don't get caught up in that, and I don't want it to rule how I think about things. And then sometimes, you know, I actually had a chat with my boss today, and he was telling me that my half-year figures are unbelievable and that everything's amazing, and all my team are, in fact, we're the only team nationally on gross new money and fees that are above target on both.
Wow.
The only team across the whole of our business. And he said, just take a minute to think about that. And I went, oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That sounds really good. Right, yeah.
That was your
Thanks
minute.
for that. Yeah, that was literally
Move
it. Like, okay, because I don't put anything. I don't attach anything to that. I think when I sometimes wake up in my house, or I've booked a holiday, or, you know, I've recently just done Everest Base Camp, and I felt a sense of achievement at the end of that. Would I, you know, having the time to do that and I ended up raising some funds for charity, so I was pleasing myself for that. You know, that probably felt more of an achievement than anything I've done in a work environment. But when I see some of the team coming through, and they've got the first big case, I've got a great lady that I work with at the moment. She's been working on a case for 2 years, and it's coming off, and everything's great. Just like, we need to celebrate this. We need to make sure we are celebrating. This is massive for you, because I think I forgot to do that in my time coming through.
So you recognise it in others what they should be doing.
Yeah.
Less so yourself.
Yeah. Selfless on that point, I think.
Yeah.
It's good to take that into something else. Like, don't forget to give yourself a pat on the back. In fact, have the afternoon off. Go and do something nice.
Yeah, go and play paddle.
Yeah.
Use my membership. That's really interesting. I wanted to ask, when will it be enough? When do you think I've achieved? I want to do something else. Because you said you go through the hamster wheel, you're
Yeah.
going through it, you're doing it,
Yeah.
you're enjoying it,
Yeah.
you love what you do.
Yeah.
I know people always, and you'll say this to your clients, and your exit plan. And people say to me, "What's your exit plan?" And I say, "I love what I do. If you take that away from me, I don't know what I would do." So it's a sort of, I'm asking you in terms of, you know, I'm not asking for your exit route, but I'm probably thinking, if you enjoy something, why why do we have a, why do we need an exit plan? I get the tax and all that,
Yeah.
but if we enjoy it, why not just crack on and enjoy it until we don't enjoy it?
Yeah. I think the enjoyment piece is huge, isn't it? And I think there's finances, isn't there, that are attached to working. And I would imagine at some point I would phase into how many
Yeah.
clients that I might manage. And, I think when you create a team around you who you feel that you can pass the baton on, the client's going to have the great experience and they're going to be totally looked after. I think we take a lot of pride, don't we? And, I care a lot about who, if I pass some clients on, am I giving them to the right person? They're not going to let me down. The client's going to have the right experience. I think if you can create the right team around you where you do the whole passing on thing and that you can slowly edge away, but having done it in a really constructive way where you feel like you're leaving everybody in safe hands. I'd take some positives from
Some
that.
comfort.
I'm not ready to not
No.
work. I
Yeah.
love what I do, and I think I can run at this pace for another 5, 6 years, and then I might run at a slightly slower pace. But I think that pace is still going to be quite fast compared to a lot of my fastest. My team say that to
I
me.
can't imagine you
No,
slowing down.
no. But
And
at
it's so you
some point
enjoy
it
it.
should, shouldn't it? It
Well,
should be natural.
you've got to enjoy life as well. But if you're doing base camp and you told me off camera that you've got, you're very organised in terms of holidays
Oh
and
yeah,
that, and then maybe that's the pendulum being in the middle for you. That's your balance.
yeah. I mean, I'm fortunate. My husband, um, he's semi-retired, so he does a lot of the heavy lifting at
Well,
home.
literally in base camp, yeah.
Yeah, he makes sure that off I go and things happen. I don't. I think sometimes I'm fortunate. I've got a team approach at home, and that gives me the freedom to be able
Yeah.
to go and focus and do what I want to do at work. Sometimes people don't have the benefit of that, do they? So I think I'm very lucky
Yeah.
that, and he loves that I love work. We've got different interests. I think it's really important to have a bit of everything. But yeah, I mean, I'm
Enjoying it.
in retirement terms, I'm still young, right?
Absolutely. Well, this is it. And the amount of tax we have to pay anyway.
I
How
know,
can we
I
retire?
know. Last check should bounce. That's my
Is that
little
is that it?
that's my little sentence sometimes that I use with clients. If we could make the last check bounce, that would be utopia.
You have to live your life, don't you?
Yeah,
You have to live.
yeah,
You can't take it with you. And I think you'll see this a lot more, that people accumulate wealth and then that's it. They die
I know.
and then they're not really enjoying it.
And they
And
forget to
life's worth
enjoy
living.
themselves. I
This is
know
it.
it's sad, isn't it? Really.
Yeah,
Um,
it's not a good game, that, because you have to
you
enjoy what you
can
do.
change mindsets for some clients.
Can you?
I've got yeah, you definitely can. I've got clients who'll ring me up really proud. They've gone and done X or Y and said, because you told me, and I'm like, I did tell you, and I'm proud of you.
Yeah,
And that's nice to
that's a
hear as
different
well.
relationship, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's not really an advisor. That's more of a. It's not a friend, is it? It's just imparting wisdom as well, because you see
yeah.
it and you get to see loads of different
Well,
people.
lots of people. I mean, clients do ask. Clients will say, "What do other clients what do other type of clients who are similar to me? What are they doing with the money, or how are
Yeah.
they spending their wealth, or do they make big gifts, or are they philanthropic? What are you seeing?" And we come up with ideas about how certain clients might do things differently. Have you thought about this?
Yeah.
So it's nice to share what you see elsewhere that could benefit somebody, and then you know before you know it, they've gone away and come back and said, "Oh, I did this." And that was from our conversation. I think, brilliant.
It's a fuzzy feeling, that,
It
isn't it?
is,
It's a
yeah, it
nice
is.
warm
That's the
feeling.
bits that we search for,
Yeah.
isn't it?
My final question then,
Okay.
Anne-Marie. I ask this to every guest.
Oh,
Okay. And it's my magic wand question. So this question is, I'm going to give you a magic wand
right.
and you can wish for anything. You only have one wish and you can wish for anything. What would you wish for and why?
I mean, I would wish for my step grandchildren, niece and nephews to have a childhood like I had and focus more on not social media and not have a view around entitlement. I think, if I could wish for anything, it would be to roll back some of the older years of how you see the family coming through. Not that they're all like that, because they're not, but I wish that I'd be able to influence them in some way that would mean that they might be less worried about what they see on social media, or that suddenly things just happen. They've got a business that's worth X from Y, because it doesn't work like that, does it? And the whole work ethic piece was nailed. I'd like to see that.
Pass it on.
Yeah, I think so. Pay it forward in that way.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if that's going to happen. And the other magic one piece would be that suddenly I'm an international paddle player in the Veterans League. Let's face it, nailing rallies like a trooper.
Okay, yeah,
That'd be
two wishes
brilliant.
there. Yeah, two wishes there. That's
Yeah.
great. But you pushed it.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Well, thank you very much today. I've learned a lot more about you.
Yeah.
And I've really enjoyed this conversation. So,
Thank you.
Ann-Marie, thank you very much.
Thank you.